years have flown by since the night my husband discovered my infidelity with my boss. What began as a seemingly ordinary evening spiraled into a whirlwind of chaos that forever altered the trajectory of my life. Tom's suspicion had been building silently over time. The late hours at the office, unexpected business trips, and the growing chasm in our marriage all pointed to something amiss. However, I was unprepared for the anguish etched on his face when he ultimately confronted me with the undeniable truth. My affair with David was not an epic romance. Rather, it stemmed from a series of poor choices during a particularly challenging phase in our relationship. Having worked at the company for 5 years, I had found myself drawn to David's charm, success, and the understanding he offered regarding my frustrations, which were alien to Tom. What began as innocent chats quickly morphed into something far more dangerous. Despite knowing it was fundamentally wrong, I reveled in the thrill of secrecy, convincing myself the risk was justified. I was gravely mistaken. That fateful night, Tom stumbled upon explicit email exchanges that laid bare my betrayal. I didn't contest the truth. There was no escaping the hurt that etched itself across Tom's face. His anger, his disbelief were overwhelming. He left the house that night, not to return for 2 agonizing days. When he finally came back, it was only to gather a few belongings and leave for good. The ensuing months were a blur of confusion and sorrow. I took a leave of absence from work to escape David's presence, an unbearable thought. Tom wasted no time in filing for divorce, and I didn't contest it, realizing I had irreparably damaged our marriage. I moved into a tiny apartment, a place where anonymity thrived, and I found solace in the solitude it provided. Our divorce was finalized 6 months later. Without children, the process was simpler, but the emotional ramifications were anything but. Our families had been intertwined for years, and the fallout was far-reaching. Friends chose sides. Many drifted away entirely, and I was left grappling with an overwhelming sense of loneliness that I knew was deserved. Eventually, I returned to the workforce, resigning from David's company to escape the whispers and stares filled with pity and judgment. I secured a position at a smaller firm where my past remained concealed. Although it was a fresh start, the lingering shame and regret remained just beneath the surface. I immersed myself in work to distract from the reality that I had lost everything meaningful in my life. Over the following years, I endeavored to piece my life back together. I began attending therapy, seeking to understand my motivations for risking my marriage over something so trivial. It became clear that the affair was merely a symptom of deeper issues, a culmination of unmet needs and poor communication. I learned that I had bypassed working through problems with Tom, instead opting for the easy way out by seeking validation elsewhere. As I grappled with my choices, I learned through mutual acquaintances that Tom had moved on. He began dating again about a year after our divorce, and eventually found someone serious, Emily, who was kind, grounded, and everything I was not. Hearing of their happiness stirred mixed emotions within me. I was glad he found stability, yet I felt the weight of what I had lost, a future that could have been ours had I chosen differently. 3 years post-divorce, I encountered Tom at a friend's wedding, our first meeting since the tumultuous end of our marriage. We exchanged polite greetings, yet an unbridgeable distance lingered between us. I perceived the remnants of pain in his eyes, triggering a wave of guilt within me. I was uncertain if either of us would ever find forgiveness. As years passed, I persisted in therapy, striving to rebuild my life. I joined a support group for individuals entangled in infidelity, both as victims and perpetrators. Listening to others' experiences illuminated the far-reaching consequences of my actions, not solely on Tom, but on myself as well. The affair had warped my self-image and worth, and I needed to confront that distortion. By the 5th year after my divorce, I reached a certain inner peace. I launched a small business with a colleague from my new job, an aspiration I had long brushed aside due to fear. For the first time in ages, I felt I was crafting something meaningful, marking the beginning of a new chapter rather than a replacement for what was lost. Around this time, I learned of Tom's engagement to Emily through social media. The pictures evoked a complex mix of emotions: joy for his newfound happiness, and an ache for the life that had slipped away, a life I wished could have been mine if only I had been stronger and more honest. Now, 8 years have passed since that life-altering night. Tom and Emily are married, and they recently welcomed their first child. I sent them a congratulatory card, not hoping for a response to my surprise. Tom reached out a few weeks later. He expressed gratitude for the card and suggested meeting for coffee. He wanted to discuss things not to rekindle old flames, but rather to seek closure. Our meeting felt like reconnecting with an old friend wrapped in a blend of familiarity and a new, undeniable distance. As we spoke about our respective journeys, it became clear that both of us had transformed in our ways. Tom shared how, despite the profound hurt from my betrayal, he recognized that we both played a role in the dissolution of our marriage. He had his own regrets about not being more attentive and not recognizing the signs that something was amiss. While this acknowledgement did not excuse my behavior, it did grant me solace to hear that he no longer considered me merely the antagonist of our story. Tom revealed that he had forgiven me, not for my benefit, but for his own peace of mind. He spoke of how it took years to reach that point, realizing that holding on to resentment was hindering his ability to embrace his new life fully. With a new family and future ahead of him, it was essential for him to let go of the past. We parted on amicable terms, both aware that we had evolved through our respective experiences. There were no grand reconciliations, no rekindling of the past. Instead, it was a quiet acknowledgement that our shared chapter had closed. Today, I continue to thrive with my business, which has surpassed my expectations. I've cautiously stepped into the dating world again, this time with a clearer vision of what I genuinely want and need in a relationship. I understand now that true contentment isn't found in transient thrills or surface-level distractions. It's rooted in the diligent work of constructing a life to be proud of. The affair marks one of the darkest mistakes of my life, yet it imparted valuable lessons about self-awareness and honesty. I am no longer the same person I was 8 years ago, and for that, I am grateful. I've learned how to confront my flaws and how to strive continuously for a better version of myself. While the past remains unchanged, I carry the burden of my choices with a new perspective. As time passes, that burden grows a bit lighter. Ultimately, I may have lost my marriage, but I found something equally significant myself. In many ways, this realization has become one of the most challenging yet rewarding discoveries of all. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment.